All of us from time to time have probably experienced a hallucination. It's not necessarily just seeing things, but it can also involve feeling, hearing, smelling. Those are all things that could be considered hallucinations. It's experiencing something that's apparently not there. Sometimes it can be something harmless, and sometimes it can be something quite terrifying, as you're about to find out in some of the experiences I've put together. I was in school, like in 10th grade. I've heard voices for a bit now. I came to the point where I'm almost getting used to the fact that I hear things others don't. When I'm at school, at this point, I remember getting up from my desk so I can use the toilet. So I got out of the room, and when I was in the hallway, I see this man, but he has no face. He's just standing there, facing me. At first, I thought my eyes were messing with me, so I blinked a couple of times, shook my head, then I looked back. He was gone. There's no way he could have moved in those empty, silent halls without me noticing, but he was gone. So I just go to the bathroom. I was thinking it was kind of weird, but I wasn't thinking too much of it. I even joked to myself about it, but when I got to the bathroom, he's there again, standing in the doorway. I just stopped and I stared for a few minutes, more curious than anything. Then I think, well, maybe he's just wearing a mask or something. I ask him to move over and to let me into the bathroom, but the other kids come out and they ask me who I'm talking to, and they walk right through them. I just stand there, speechless, because what can you say in that situation? The kid looks at me like I'm weird, but then just walks away. The dude with no face, he moves over and lets me by. I give him a wide berth while I go in, and I never take my eyes off of him. He follows me into the bathroom. A few seconds later, a girl walks in. I began telling her that she's in the wrong bathroom. This was a guy's room. When I noticed that she didn't have a face either, they both began walking towards me. At this point, I'm pretty damn scared. So I go hide in one of the stalls, and I start bawling my eyes out, because at this point, I'm pretty much just going crazy. I didn't leave. I did not come out of that stall until a staff talked me out of it. The two of them, the girl and the guy, they still show up every now and again. Note, I've graduated and moved away from there, but they still show up wherever I am, but they never do anything, so I don't know what to make of it. But the first time, it about scared the life out of me. One Friday evening, I was watching TV. I happened to be playing with a flashlight. It was one I left on the coffee table. Then I heard a loud boom. The next thing I know, I'm in a full-blown hallucination. I heard a special force team outside the window. They were sneaking out of my backyard. I flashed the light around the room, and they all got quiet. They misunderstood my intent. They thought the light was mounted on a rifle. The next thing I know, they're calling me outside as part of a SWAT response. I'm on my hands and knees on the porch. This was dead at night. I was asking them please not to shoot me. I must have stayed that way for like 2 hours. I had my hands locked behind my head as the sniper got more and more nervous about what I might do. Eventually they decided that there was no way to defuse the situation, so they shot me. I spent the next 5 minutes laying dead on the porch. Then I crawled inside to die. I phoned my mom to let her know that I'd been shot and that special forces had killed me. Needless to say, she wasn't buying it. She talked me down to earth a little bit, but that wasn't the end of it. She had me go to the ER, and she stayed with me on the phone until I got there. I'm still in a full-blown hallucination mode while I'm still waiting in the ER. And I hear the leader of the special forces chatting with the front desk nurse. He knows that I'm there, and he's coming to get me. Luckily, the doctor found me first. They really didn't know what to do with me, so they gave me 2 milligrams of Ativan and discharged me. So I'm driving home, and I see all types of crazy stuff on the way home. Once I got home, the Ativan starts to mellow the hallucinations to something more enjoyable. I spent the rest of the weekend with playful hallucinations. I can't really describe the fear of having special forces, having snipers aim at you for 2 hours straight, but it was terrifying, and it felt absolutely real. I have voices in my head that tells me they're necromancers, trying to steal my soul and take over my body. They try to convince me that they're real people all day, every day. The scariest times, when my heart was beating incredibly fast, they told me that they had control of my heart and that they were going to speed it up until it killed me. At one point, I totally believed that they were real, but I don't anymore. I've proved them to be just voices with logic, thanks to the help I got. I have suffered from paranoid schizophrenia for the majority of my life, which is made worse because of my very long addiction to meth and heroin and heavy psychedelic abuse. During this addiction, I went from having weird delusions to having full-blown hallucinations. One of the scariest was that there was a man in my closet. He would appear every now and again. Each time, it scared the hell out of me, which is extremely unusual for me. It was the only hallucination that instantly felt wrong to me. I knew he wasn't real, unlike some of my other hallucinations, but it was very disturbing nonetheless. I would open my closet door so as to get some clothes that would be hanging there. I had several shirts hanging on clothes hangers. He would be wearing one of the shirts, while the shirt was still hanging on the crossbar. Imagine a shirt hanging on the clothes hanger with a pale head and arms sticking out of their respective holes. His abdomen was still flat like the shirt, but his appendages were normal size. He also had no legs. He would just hang there and slightly sway, giving me a look of strong distaste. He always looked angry, but he never talked. He never moved his arms or his head. He would just stare at me with a menacing look on his face. I would usually close my closet door and leave my room immediately. It was truly unsettling. Even when it started happening more regularly, I would never wear the shirt that he was wearing because I was always afraid to touch him. After a while, he stopped appearing. I eventually forgot all about him. I haven't seen him in a long time, and I hope to never see him again. I've seen children in the road in front of my car while I'm driving. That's really scary because I always hit them just before realizing I was hallucinating and there's nothing there. One time I was hiding under a picnic table because I could see all of these colored flashing lights just in my peripheral vision, and I just knew the aliens were coming to get me. As I curled under the table, I could see them ducking their heads down and clutching and grabbing at my clothes and my limbs. After a short but intense struggle, I came out of it realizing that the lights were actually from an ambulance, and the EMTs were trying to restrain me so I wouldn't hurt myself. And then I realized that was also a hallucination, and I was just alone under a table in the middle of a dark campground, needlessly scared out of my mind. Somebody I know back in high school, she accidentally skipped a dose one day, and when she came to school, she was hysterical. She didn't want to go back home because she heard someone chewing on human meat under her bed. Human meat. How does one even know how that sounds like? I'm a social worker. One of my clients said that he would see clown faces, but with empty eye sockets reflected in windows, like in his bedroom and also in his car. I'm not schizophrenic, but I hallucinated a fair bit as a teen, and I still sometimes do now. I'm not sure what triggers them. It just happens from time to time. No drugs involved. The most unnerving thing I've seen was a creature. It was as tall as the inside of the house, stooped over my neighbor's veranda. It looked like a person, but stretched out, hollow face, eyes, and just stared at me. I would look away for a minute, then back at it, and it would still be staring, just watching me. I was 16 at the time. I have seen smaller versions of this guy everywhere, but this one was huge and refused to go. Eventually, I fell asleep. He wasn't there when I woke back up. I haven't gotten a diagnosis, but I have been suffering from constant delusions, paranoia, and hallucinations for the past 2 years. The scariest hallucination that ever took place was at Target. I was in the canned food aisle, and I saw a little girl grab a can. There was nothing really unusual about it. I, at first, figured it was just a girl trying to get something off the shelf for her mom. But then, after a while of just standing there with a can in her hands in silence, she turned toward me and she stared at me. The thing was, she had empty eye sockets. She opened the can and she started chasing me around the store with the can top. It was really sharp. I started running through the store to escape. I know it's stupid, but it felt real. Anyway, I ended up tripping, and the next thing I knew, she handed me the can top and was controlling my arms. I felt myself cut my neck and my wrist and was basically screaming. But then, I knocked myself out. When I came to, I was just standing staring at the cans with tears streaming down my face. It was the most vivid hallucination I've ever had, and much scarier than the ones that I have daily. The scariest thing that I saw was when I was biking to my friend's house. He just lived around the corner. I felt something behind me, and when I looked, there was a pitch black humanoid figure riding on the back of my bike. Needless to say, I crashed the bike. That hallucination was rude. I'm bipolar, and before I was diagnosed or medicated, I had auditory and visual hallucinations, also known as psychotic symptoms. The auditory ones included someone screaming my name, and also the sentence, "Big Brother is watching," over and over again, and a male voice screaming. The visual ones were terrifying. I would wake up, and I would see my arms covered in spiders, which didn't go away when I swatted at them. And I saw this guy with thin-brimmed glasses and a hat looking back at me from the inside of a black TV screen. Hopefully, I don't come across as too crazy. I thankfully haven't had any serious symptoms in the past 6 months. Antipsychotics and mood stabilizers are a godsend, because hallucinations are no joke. The creepiest thing I've seen hallucinating was when I was 14 or 15. I seen a tall, lanky silhouette. It was at the bottom of my stairs. His head was facing up toward me, but I couldn't see any facial features. It reached out toward me with one of its arms, and before anything else happened, I closed my eyes. I just stood there for like 5 minutes. It could have been 10 for all I know. When I opened my eyes, poof, it was gone. Only had one experience with hallucinations, and it was due to a rare side effect of some antidepressant. I was taking it during my stay in a psych ward. It was due to depression. I was trying to watch a soccer game. I was together with the rest of the patients, but some guy that I didn't know was blocking my view of the TV. I tried to ask the guy to move, but the remaining patients told me there was no one there. I freaked out. I went to tell the nurse on duty. She informed me that it was a known side effect of the medication, and that she would talk to the doctor the next morning. She offered to give me something to help me sleep, but once I knew what was going on, and it wasn't a sign that I was actually going insane, I told her no thanks. I went back to the TV room and the guy was still there. He was wearing an MIT hoodie. I was only vaguely aware what MIT was, since I'm German, but I must have seen someone wearing one before, for that memory to be dredged up. Because later, I was able to find a similar one on the internet. He was wearing sunglasses and shuffling a deck of cards. I asked other patients to trade seats with me, so that I can ignore this idiot who was standing in the way. And once the soccer game was over, he was gone. In hindsight, I thought it was rather amusing, but in the state of mind that I was in back then, it wasn't. One time I took some acid, which later I found out it was an acid, but it did make me hallucinate. I actually hallucinated that I died. Throughout the trip, I knew it was laced. I was mostly unresponsive, and my mom came in and saw me catatonic. She called the ambulance and held me in my bed while I convulsed. The EMT arrived, and I could see the emergency lights shining through my window. I could hear my mom, and I could hear them zap me a few times before ultimately I died. I woke up the next morning to my mom making pancakes downstairs. There was no ambulance, no dying. My mom didn't even know I was home. One of my earliest hallucinations was of my newborn, who at the time was sleeping soundly. But to me, he was communicating to my husband and me in complete sentences. I remember the intense feelings of relief as he plainly explained to us exactly what he wanted from us that morning and how he reassured us that we were doing a really excellent job taking care of him. I was so excited about this crazy turn of events. Then I shot up in my bed and slapped my husband awake. It was some ungodly hour in the morning. He needed to clearly bear witness to this miracle that was happening in the bedroom. My husband looked at me in that way that said, "Oh my God, he's awake already? Please kill me." And it started to become clear, and I realized that I must have hallucinated it. So instead of freaking him out, I just told him sorry and go back to bed. But I have to admit, for a part of that morning, I wasn't absolutely sure that I imagined the whole thing. A part of me held out hopes that it really did happen, and the baby was keeping it a secret between the two of us, like one of those dolls that only comes alive when the grown-ups aren't watching. Thanks for joining me for this edition of The Creeper. I really enjoy putting at least one light-hearted one in there. All these instances are very fascinating. I'm sure I've had some auditory hallucinations myself. None of them really come to mind. I'm sure it's happened, but none of it's really stood out to me, so I really don't know exactly what it's like, but I probably don't want to experience it in real life. Thank you all for joining me. I want to give a special thanks to my patrons. Your help is greatly appreciated in support of the channel. If you want to become a patron, for as little as $1 a month, you can get advanced access to downloadable MP3s, or you can listen to it online, and just one tier up, you can get all the videos, early access, without ads. Well, again, thank you very much, and until next time, this is Dallas, signing off.